Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am honored today to be joined by Gary Webster, who is an actor in the upcoming horror film Harbinger, which you can see in the UK on August 10th, and then in the US here on August 11th. So, Gary, thank you so much for taking some time to meet with me.
It's my pleasure, Matt. Really is. Thank you so much for asking me.
Oh, well, I know we don't have all the time in the world, but I'll get right into my first question for you, Gary, which is, you play the character of Mike, and I'm curious to kind of hear from your perspective, kind of what you picked up on the character when you first read it on the script. What are some of your first impressions?
Well, I think Mike, for me, he's a journeyman TV presenter. I think it's the same here in America, everywhere. You know, that he's probably had quite a good career to begin with, morning TV, graduated to daytime TV, maybe a little discussion program. But his career's on the wane now. And as like most TV presenters, they look for something outside their remit, not necessarily what they want to do. And he's chosen ghost hunting as a
Right.
product of the 90s and the 2000s. So he's jumped on that bandwagon, and even now that car's beginning to slow down. So he's desperately looking for the next biggest thing that would actually resurrect his career, which continues to be in the ghost hunting. And his main drive is to hook up with Julia, who survived, the lone survivor of a serial killer who has been operating under the guise that he's been spiritually guided in some way to perform these murders. So he puts two and two together, always for himself. He's out for himself. We've got a couple of presenters in this country that I kind of loosely based him on, that maybe are not the most popular, but are always around, like Bad Pennies. And I think he's kind of someone who's he's available and support to everyone, but really underneath it all, he's only interested in himself.
Yeah, he's definitely a bit of a huckster, and it feels like he saw Ghost Watch too many times, and he's like, you know what, I can do that. I'm gonna make my own Ghost Watch.
Exactly. I think he kind of thinks that, even, and of course he understands that it may not be true. There could or could not be ghosts. He doesn't care. It's about his ego, and he wants to be back where he was 30 years ago. Which I'm hoping doesn't mirror my career. I think it might.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say, you've had such a kind of prolific career in TV and film, but especially
Yeah,
kind of being on the other side of it, playing the role where you're almost playing the type of person that you would be potentially cast as in a
yeah,
TV series. So it's got to be a bit of a meta feeling to be in that role in a film.
yeah. It's just very strange. I mean, it's very. I mean, that's why I love indie films, because they're actually, for me. I mean, my career in the UK didn't really transfer across to the States or anything like that. But it was very much I played villains, or I played policemen, or I played cheeky Cockney chappies. Basically same character, just different suits. So to actually play a character like this, which is maybe on a grander budget, a grander scale, I wouldn't have been given the opportunity. But on the indies, and certainly with Shogun Films, they took a chance that I could actually deliver on this as an actor, of which I am, but I've been in the game now almost 40 years. Yeah, it was great fun to play, and it was very rewarding. And I think we're all very happy with the end product. Hopefully. So
Yeah,
everyone,
no, I think that your character is so interesting only because it does remind me so many of people that are just, we've been indoctrinated into through pop culture that are all about the ratings and
yeah,
are looking for the next thing to shock and excite the audience rather than maybe what's the most sensitive thing to be
yeah,
doing, especially
yeah,
re-traumatizing Julia through the process of showing her scar and everything.
yeah.
It's just it it all comes off a bit, a bit insensitive, but I think that's kind of the state of where we are in the world right now, is that we're kind of in this weird place of not political correctness, but kind of almost shock and awe.
It's totally that. It's he would have, his conscience would have given it a second thought, but things like showing us that, then he's thinking about the clicks or the follows or the likes,
Right.
and but he's just out of that remit that really he's a bit too old for it all, but he's still kind of trying to be one of the down and dirties. So it's that lovely fine balance, of he's a bit too old, but he kind of crosses the line sometimes, but it's all about himself. It's all about him getting recognised and getting back on that TV screen and people coming up and asking for his autograph. And I think that's what he lives by. even to the point of when people die around him. So
Right.
it's good for the show. It's good for the show.
Exactly. Yeah. Your coworker just died. I think it's just like
Yeah,
your friend just died. No, my colleague just died. He corrects.
exactly.
And
That's right. Yeah,
age knows ego knows no age. So I think
yeah,
that no matter how old Mike is, I think that
yeah,
part of his personality, it seems, as a character. And you
yeah.
have been doing a lot of work recently, particularly in the horror genre, and I'm curious kind of what excites you about working within genre, especially because it's just so popular right now.
Well, it's amazing, I mean, I see so many indies and even mainstream. It seems to that the top bosses say, horror is the genre to be in. So go off and make horror, which sometimes is a bit worrying because you like people to make films that drive them, and if it hits a genre, great. But of course, we're in a money-making industry here, and we're here to supply for the audience. So if the audience are saying horror, let it be horror, But I'm a product of the. I was born in the '60s, so tail end, Rosemary's Baby, and then full on for Friday the 13th, Burnt Offerings, Black Christmas, Halloween. I mean, these are all films that you said you was 18 when you was 14, trying to get in at the cinema. No,
Exactly.
getting all you had to do then was get your birth date right, the year, no showing of ID. So yeah, it was a great time and all independence, so it was a great time for horror when I was growing up, and that stays with you because
Yeah.
you can judge everything else on that. And I think obviously the techniques and the super special effects have improved fantastically, but it's still that basic. I remember seeing a film called He Knows You're Alone, and the idea that somebody opened a door and was looking around a darkened room, and the door then shut, and you realise the protagonist, the killer, was behind the door. That doesn't matter how good special effects you got. It's that feeling we all have. You go and check under your bed and in your wardrobe, and I think that will last forever. That's just a natural human instinct.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, what you just described reminded me of a scene from a film called When a Stranger Calls Back, where
Right?
the killer had like dyed himself in black paint and like hidden against the walls, and
Right.
it's a '90s film, so they pull it off, with not the kind of complement of CGI or anything. And I think that you're right that there are these primal kind of fears we have
Yeah.
about being watched or being stalked, or kind of there's someone in a room with us,
Yes.
that are just hard to shake. And I think we always, I don't think too many people get scared per se by horror movies anymore, but I think that we like that feeling of suspense, of tension, of we don't know what's going to happen, or the care or the concern.
Yes, exactly. I think it's whatever endorphin that might release. But as I say, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because you could go and see, a rom-com, and you would open up the door of your house quite happily, and you would go upstairs, toilet, drop your coat off, and no need to have a look around. You go and see a horror, and it changes your attitude to the way you come in completely. There is something in the back of your mind thinking, I'm just going to open that door just to make sure. And I just love the wonderment of what film can do to set your brain going. And so, having not really been too involved with horror before, yeah, it's a genre that I embrace because I know that feeling. I think it's about imagination, and I mean, I for years would have checked under my bed as a kid growing up. In fact, I think I did it last Tuesday. Actually, I was scared. So, I'm still doing it now, if I'm truth be known. So,
It's impossible to avoid that perception. Again, I think it all is a matter of timing and context. If you leave a theater with a bunch of other people, maybe you don't feel that same
yeah,
sense of worry. But if you're by yourself, you leave a
yeah,
darkened area into a corridor that doesn't have, your brain will fill in the gaps of the things that you just saw. So
absolutely.
I think
And
that there's a lot of fun in the horror genre because of that.
yeah, I do. I agree. And I've always wondered, was it intrinsically a human instinct, or has it been since we've watched horror films? And I think it's a combination of both. We're taken
Yeah.
down a route because we've seen so much of it from book form. I mean, when Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, that's a book, and we're all thinking. And then when you see it visually and art and things, so I think it's a combination of both. That we have that intrinsic fear, and what horror genre does, and this does wonderfully, and many others, it just gives us a focus of what that theory is really about. And then it's yeah, it's a great. I mean, how wonderful that a flat screen can make people think like that. I'm always in awe.
Oh, absolutely. I think the power of art, and particularly in the
Yeah,
context of film, is
yeah,
just so wonderful. And I think you're right that as time has gone on, we've always been afraid of something,
yes,
but how we've been able to can't make that fear tangible has changed. And I think that we've
yeah,
become now there's no secrets, right? We can make the most brutal and disgusting things out of special effects, whereas before we had to use a lot more imagination.
I agree.
Um, so I think we're just in this really great era where if you whatever you want to be scared of, someone can make that real for you, and that can be
Yes,
on a screen. So if nothing else, the horror genre is an equal opportunity provider of scares because there's something
yes,
something to
yes,
frighten everybody, I guess.
exactly. Yes, yes, it's this. It's not. It's not specific. Anybody can be scared from horror.
Exactly. I mean, and one of the last questions I have for you, Gary, is around this kind of difference between TV and film acting, because with TV, especially, you've been in series that have run for kind of multiple
Yeah.
seasons and you know tens of episodes, and so it's like you have a different flow and process, I'm sure, that you would go into with that. So I'm just curious to hear your perspective on kind of the difference from working in TV and film, and if you see any at all.
Yeah, obviously, it is. It's That's why when you're getting back to film, I have to check myself because you can't be as big. It has to be a lot more subtle. Although even if the character's not subtle, you have to do it in certain ways. And I was fortunate enough to work with people mainly on television, but were great exponents of subtlety. And the camera will pick up everything you do, everything you think. Having worked a lot in the theatre as well, you have to gesture more because there could be
Yeah.
people sitting 50 feet away who can't see so well, or whatever. So they've got you, it's another kind of incorporation of how to let them know the message of what you're feeling. But when you've got a camera like that, you can do it much more subtly. But as I say, so it's a fine line between being over the top, too big for the screen itself, too big for the camera, and playing someone like Mike Craggs, who is too big for life, at times.
Yes.
So it's that was the trickiness of it. But I'm sort of happy with what I did in that because people have said, yeah, whatever I was trying to make him to come across as, people have said that they're getting that. So I think, okay, there's certain times I could have been a little bit smaller, but generally I'm happy with that. But there's certainly three marked differences. And my son, who's just become a professional actor, I worked with on stage. I'm always trying to drill in the three different, modes of how you could go about it.
That's wonderful. So it's wonderful you get to act with your son as well. That's kind of just a
Oh,
nice thing to share between you two.
there's certain things that happen in my life. When I could put professional actor on my passport, everything else was gravy then. Everything else. Or if you get well known for it or whatever, I could put that on my passport. Coming from where I came from, that was not meant to happen. I performed Macbeth. I played Macbeth at the Bolton Octagon, and I was in the show in the West End. Box tick. Didn't need it. Being on, my son wanted to be an actor. We've now acted together. I die a happy man now.
Uh, that's wonderful, Gary. I mean, I'm so thankful that you've been able to spend the time not just with me on this conversation today, but also just hearing about your journey through the business. And I
Yeah.
think you chewed the right amount of scenery in this role as Mike. So I think you're just big enough to get across the point that this is not someone you want to be friends with, but they're the kind of person you can't look away from either. So you're kind of drawn to
Brilliant.
their excitement. But Gary, I just want to remind everyone watching this that you can watch Harbinger on in the UK on August 10th, and then of
Yeah.
course in the US the following day on August 11th from Miracle Media. And Gary, I hope you continue to work in the horror genre because love to see you
Oh,
in it,
fantastic.
and hope we get a chance to talk again in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I really respect it. It's been my pleasure.